part of the statute requires that law enforcement agencies perform a comparative analysis and then turn that comparative analysis over to TCOLE. Are you all collecting those analyses annually?
That's a very good question, and it's a very difficult question, because what exactly is a comparative analysis? And that can take many different forms. And the problem we have, once again, is creating something that we can ensure that the material, the numbers they're supposed to be creating are there, that they have gathered the information that the law says they're supposed to gather and done it in a way that fits the components of what that comparative analysis is, okay? Does our form have a summary statement on those numbers? No, it doesn't, because it's very difficult to make that fit the variety of what you have in Texas. What that would be in Austin, Texas is tremendously different than what it is in Pecos, Texas, or in Loving County, or it's just, it's difficult to try to pin it down to say on a form, this is what you're supposed to say when that carries so many different forms. So we make sure the components are all there. We make sure that everything they're supposed to report is there. And the numbers themselves are in a form. It's easy to look at them and make that analysis. Mm-hmm. Our form does not have the actual summary statement comparative analysis, and we figure that is best handled at a local level. We make sure that what they're supposed to gather, they gather, and that they do report it in. But if you ask me, is the actual summary statement of a comparative analysis on that form? No, it's not. That's a very difficult thing to pin down, to be quite frank.
Yeah, and then where we got it from obviously was Article 2.134.
You betcha. I totally agree with what you're reading, and I see it.
Yeah.
It's just it's where the rubber meets the road is a very difficult thing to find a way to make that fit. That's one thing that Alex Del Carmen does with his business. He takes that and he forms a multi-page comparative analysis, but the chief in and I don't know that talks almost condescending about in a small town in rural South Texas or far West Texas or in the Panhandle doesn't have that expertise and that the resources available to do that. And sometimes the best they can do at that point is make sure they gather what they're supposed to gather. And we make sure every component is there that they're supposed to do. And that's as far as we feel comfortable forcing them to take that, as far as just simply reporting to us. Now, what they report to their local governing body, hopefully is much more than what they give to us, because that's who that's really has oversight of it. But we found it difficult to plug that in a way that fit the whole state. And so the way that we go about that is ensuring that every component necessary is there.
Yeah, and then, in the statute, and we went back and we interviewed Linda Harper Brown, who was the representative who authored, the 2009 legislation that said, hey, TCOLE, get over here. You got skin in the game now. But, in that legislation, and again, under Sandra Bland, it says that, the annual report that these law enforcement agencies submit every year, and the statute is clear, it says it must include a comparative analysis. It goes on to say that no later than March 1 of each year, each agency shall submit a report containing this incident-based data, which you get on the front end, compiled during the previous calendar year to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. So the statute is saying, and Ms. Harper Brown said this was their intent when they passed it, the statute clearly says that TCOLE must accept two things. Number one, the data that's produced in the spreadsheet, but secondly, and even your own website has that there should be, I think your website says shall include a separate PDF, some separate data that would, number one, have the comparative analysis, and secondly, would have information relating to each complaint filed with the agency alleging that a peace officer employed by the agency engaged in racial profiling. So, the original author of this bill, it's her opinion that TCOLE is only doing half the job. Okay. That you're doing a job of getting the raw numbers in, But then the most important step of analyzing numbers, looking for indicators that the state of Texas, TCOLE has no way, since that information is not being collected, there's no way to know whether those analyses are being performed.
Okay. Well, I will tell you that when we built the current report, we worked closely with legislators that were involved in this process. I did not speak with that particular legislator, um, uh, but this doesn't have to be a finished product. You know what I'm saying? They don't have to start reporting this. We can get more information out to them, and I'll look at that and see what we can do that might fit that. It's very difficult to pin that down, but we will make an absolute diligent effort to see that we do something that will satisfy that. I'm very interested in speaking with the legislators on that to make sure that I want to get whatever they need us to get. You know, it doesn't serve us a purpose to try to sidestep, and that's our job, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it to the absolute best of our ability, and that is our intent, and that's what we'll do. So I felt comfortable in our discussions with legislators. I felt comfortable in our discussions with Alex Del Carmen that what we currently have was satisfactory to that. But I have no problem going back and reevaluating again and taking a look at it.
Yeah, and this is, and what we're getting from, because we've contacted 43, 44 agencies just in Central Texas in our viewing area to say, did you perform an audit and did you do a comparative analysis? There are many who have done neither the audit nor the analysis. If a law enforcement agency is not verifying the data at the front end and then coming back and not analyzing the data, is it a fair assumption to make that there could be racial profiling happening in the state of Texas and neither the state nor the public would have any idea that's going on in a local department?
I could see that being a possibility. I could. The issue comes into play of, and I'm certainly not making excuses for any of the agencies you spoke with at all. But once again, in order to truly make a comparative analysis, it seems to me you'd have to have some expertise in how to do that, or you'd have to hire somebody that has that expertise and have them do it for you. And I can't speak to budget restraints. I can't speak to knowledge restraints that they may have. I'm with you. I'm looking at the law. It's pretty clear that was the intent. That is an intent to be done there. We'll look at it again, and if there's a way we can help agencies get to that point, that's what we need to be doing. TCOLE works under the idea of being a partnership with agencies. Even though we're regulatory, our way of doing business is to help them get where they need to be and not sit around and point fingers. Okay. So based on what you're saying, it probably would be a good thing for us to see if there's any way we can help facilitate that. Because simply putting it on a form and say, give us one, isn't going to necessarily make it done. You know what I'm saying? They've got to be able to do it. And if there's a way I can help them do that, then that's what we need to do. And that's what we're gonna be happy to try. But we'll look at that and see what we can do to help them facilitate that.
Yes, sir. And I just want to make sure before I get to the next point that, so what we're hearing from some of these agencies too, and this is more of a clarification point here, is that some may be misconstruing the initial numbers that they collect, compile, and send to you all. Some appear to be misconstruing those just raw numbers as a comparative analysis, when the statute's clear in how you do that is an evaluation. You look and you compare.
Audit, right, to see how it works. Yes.
Yeah, that you're actually comparing each category disposition of a stop with race and sex. It's not happening. Could that raw data, the pure raw numbers, do those raw numbers take the place of a comparative analysis?
No, not really. I'm with you there. I get your point, and I see exactly what you're saying. The raw numbers are the components of it but somebody needs to look at it and try to interpret those. My issue is you're going to an agency of 5 officers, and nobody there has an idea, even a clue how to do that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that excuses it. I'm just saying we need, the state needs to, and I guess that would be through us, to try to see if we can help facilitate that. And we'll do that, see what we can do. But not everybody understands what you're talking about. They don't understand when it says you'll do an audit and you look at them and you look at the raw numbers, they feel like they have done that. And to have them come up with something that is a true comparative analysis of something might not be something they have the expertise in, but they need, and so they need help in that, which is where companies like Dr. Del Carmen's do come in to that deal, but not everybody can afford his services. So how do we help those that don't have the knowledge or the finances to do that, the budget to do that? How do we help them fulfill that? I guess that's a statewide problem that does need to be addressed.
Yeah, and then we look back. So I mean, what we got the sense of in looking at this is, I mean, yeah, TCOLE's posture is, and it's obviously obvious from the legislation that, you all are a repository. You send these in, we publish this so the public can look at it. And I mean, heck, it's easy to see for years back. It's right there on your website, the raw numbers. Obviously, those raw numbers don't give you the full picture, which is what these analyses should provide. But, when you look at the legislation, it gives TCOLE the exclusive jurisdiction and authority to punish with punitive penalties law enforcement agencies who fail to comply with the law. And just looking back from 2016, 17, and 18, because there was a drastic change in 19. So, but in 2016, 2017, 2018, there were just short of 1,000 instances where law enforcement agencies in those 3 years never submitted any racial profiling data. It's on the website still today, where they didn't submit one single stop. You look at 2019, those numbers got better, but there were still 30 some agencies who failed to report anything to TCOLE. When you look back historically, the trend that happened over the years, that is still happening today, TCOLE has the authority to fine these administrators, to send a serious message that you will pay the price if you fail to comply with this law. Has TCOLE ever punished a chief administrator for not complying with the racial profiling reporting law?
Well, first off, the numbers that you just quoted can be a little bit misleading, because you're assuming that every agency out there has to do this report.
I should have qualified it by saying all these we took out of the set the exempt. These are all agencies that are marked in TCOLE's databases requiring a full report. I'm sorry, I should have clarified that.
I appreciate that. I'd have to look at that, because when I talk to my staff that works in that arena and works on getting those reports in, we've had years of 100% compliance. And so what you're telling me is inconsistent with what I'm getting on my end. So I'd have to look at that and get back with you with I have not had a single case brought to me where my staff says this chief or this chief administrator intentionally did not send in this report, because that's what the law requires, is we act if they intentionally don't send in the report. And there are some agencies that don't have to report, even though they may make traffic stops. So there are, and some of them do anyway, even they don't have to, and I appreciate that. But that what you're telling me is not consistent with what I'm receiving on my end here in-house. I'll have to look at that and see. I'd love to see your numbers so I can compare to what we have here. I would love to see that, so that I can see where we're having an inconsistency there.
Yeah, let me make a note. Send empty departments. Yeah, I will definitely send that to you all for sure.
I've never, in the time I've been here, I've never had compliance with that presented as an issue. You know what I'm saying? Okay. That because they call and call and call, and then the last thing I hear is we got them all in. We got compliance on them. So if we have anybody that's intentionally neglecting it and intentionally not turning it in, you can bet your bet. I mean, you can bet your rear end, I'm gonna go after it. That's that's our job. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make sure it gets done.